Kia ora, Nor. So I guess the final presentation for today is just kind of tying all the loose ends or the bits together. So we've had different themes like economic development, social development, papakainga type developments. So one of the big questions that we found for our work was, so when we talk about better living and all these sorts of things, what do we mean by better? And there's a diverse literature on it, and there's a lot of different meanings. You inevitably end up with this concept of well-being. So we explored what we mean by well-being and what it might mean across different a diverse population. So we've had a go at developing a model, and it's very much in a development. It's a process of development. It's by no means at the end. So we're going to present some of that thinking today. Obviously, as urban Māori, there's been lots of challenges that we've seen today, but there's been lots of opportunities taken in development. So we've had the development of and where I live in Titahi Bay, we've got Auditorium that sits under Ngāti Toa, which is health service. We've got the marae developments, we've got all these parks, we've got all this fantastic vibrancy. We've got a lot of organisations working towards this idea of well-being, but often they're in different parts of it. So council might look at the building, iwi might look at iwi stuff, urban authorities might look at specific bits, but we found there was no overarching picture of what this thing of well-being is. There's some good literature on well-being and models, but none of it was specific to urban environments, and often again it was quite specific. So what we did was to have a look at these models and say, well, what's it saying? What sort of outcomes would we be interested in terms of a well-being framework? So we made it specific in this instance to urban environments. We focused on what was called objective well-being. So a lot of the literature on well-being talks about more subjective. So being happy, being things like connected, which is more of a personal thing. It's very important. But for our instances, we were interested in what sort of environments does urban governance have influence on. Often physical environments, but it's also the social environments that come along with it, and the natural environments. We're very interested in how Māori values are applied within this. And we're obviously interested in the role of urban governance. We put it onto a logic format, and a basic logic format, acknowledging they're very simplistic representations, and also acknowledging Jono's talk about the complexity of these issues. But we thought it would just help us think about who are the inputs in terms of governance, what are the sorts of action areas, and what sort of outcomes are we interested in. Here's a bunch of the models that we did look at in the frameworks. We also were quite influenced by the writing of Keriata Stuart, who's a welfare economist, and talks about this idea of capability. So a lot of what he talks about is we shouldn't get too caught up in what well-being is. We should get more caught up in that people are able to be well. And you'll see that in the first title with those that you brought telescopes to the presentation. You'll see off in the corner there's a statement that urban environments are able to sustain a way of life that Māori collectively have reason to value. So we don't get caught up in the diverse meanings of well or valuing. We say that this is up to these collections to value it, that they're able to do it. So it's in line with tino rangatiratanga, empowerment, all those sorts of notions. And very importantly, the notion of sustainability is in there. So the idea there is if they're not well and they can't be sustained over time, these communities will atrophy, maybe disappear, or we need to support them. So next thing we became interested in were, okay, what were the common themes across these models? We called them domains or po, hence ngā po Māori order. Māori order is this ultimate idea of well-being, the life force. And we came up with 5 domains here. The first one was this notion of whakawhanaungatanga. So it's community spaces that enable social activity, that we can come together, we socialise, we connect, we support each other. So here we've got sports grounds, there's lots of environments, marae can play those sorts of things as well. Schools, often hubs for community. The second one is this idea of kaitiakitanga. So primarily this is a domain for mana whenua, taking kaitiaki over the local land and the seas. You'll see that's Mana Island, but it's also for anybody in the urban environment. It's about supporting mana whenua as well as taking care of the land. One important thing from this model is that we're seen as being dependent on nature, we're not apart from it, and we've got to respect nature. So this notion of kaitiakitanga is respecting and having a dialogue with nature, with the environment, connecting back to it. A third one which often comes up is this notion of ukai pōtanga, which is what we've called it here. The notion of being connected, having a sense of identity and connection to place. So it can be things like language, it can be places like Whariwaka, which is just close to here, obviously. Places that connect me, my whānau, to this place and make in signs that my culture is valued. So we've got mana whenua, which is really good. We've got these other things like urban marae, which sends these sorts of messages out as well. Next one is this notion of wāhi manaakitanga. So for Māori, manaakitanga is a very important concept. It's this idea of providing hospitality, but also nurturing places and spaces. Here we've broadened it a bit to think about how can our physical environments be supportive of our people. So things like the roading infrastructure, the food environment, being physically active, all those things. It's the way that councils design these spaces. And finally, whairawa, which is a term we pinched from Ngāi Tahu, it's this idea of that having the resource, not just income, but also the assets and the access to insurance or education enables us to get resource that was distributed in the community. So it's about the way that our wealth is distributed in our community, so we have fair and equitable communities. The next thing we did was look at a whole lot of action areas. So these are the places and spaces where these enable these domains to occur. And these are just summarised from the documents we looked at. We thought there's obviously probably quite a few more, but we thought there's quite a good bunch of places. And these are the places where our urban governance, councils, iwi, runanga, urban authorities, sports groups, businesses have a fundamental role in playing, so they influence our outcomes. And just as a bit of a play, we sort of connected them to the different bits. So each of these action areas has impacts on multiple outcomes. So you can think of education, not only helps us get jobs, but it helps us, having Māori medium in our kōrero kaupapa helps us identify and acknowledge us as Māori in our urban environments. And then we have a lot of inputs in this model. It's the different types of urban governance. You can represent all this on a systems model, which I think would be great, but they kind of do my heads in and it's not my sort of area, so I've sort of banged it onto one of these models. Just as an example, this is just one that I've done for iwi and hapu. So these are sorts of action areas that an iwi or hapu might be engaged with, which is pretty much all of them. In fact, I've left out the transport infrastructure, but Ngāti Toa has been engaged with that, with making the road safer around the Takapua here. But you can see the sort of the complexity of how these spaces lead to these domains. If you look at another one, so in this case we've looked at an urban authority, so you could think of Waipareira, and these are the sorts of spaces that they engage with. If you look at the overlaps, these are the sorts of spaces where they might have mutual interest. Obviously, the iwi role might be much more broader, but these are spaces where we should be collaborating, working towards a bigger picture of where we're working towards. So that was just a brief overview of the model. I like it, but I've been involved with it. A bit self-serving. But we're going to continue to develop. We're really interested in engaging in dialogue about it and hopefully get some stuff out soon. Kia ora, bro.